The UEE would like to remind you that Bearing Applied Technologies has issued a mass recall for all countermeasures produced in the last 3 months. There have been reports of widespread failure among these countermeasures against infrared and electromagnetic missiles. Anyone with a shipment of chaff or flares from lot 6199-45533 to 6199-65104 should navigate directly to your local bearing retailer for a full refund or replacement. We here at the UEE PSA Bureau wish you luck in this journey, because with faulty countermeasures, you're going to need it. Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Tales of Citizens right here on the Sound Strategy Network. I am Bridger, and today we have a great show for you. We're going to be talking all about PAX South and the town hall meetings. That's what they call them down there. And that chuckling voice is my nemesis, the one, the only Calathulu. Welcome, sir.
Hello, all from sunny, rainy, windy, hot, dry, cool, whatever, California.
And also from that side of the country, we have our good friend Gray from Team Legacy. Welcome, sir.
Greetings from Seattle, where it's always 55 degrees.
It's nice to have the consistency, but you know, spring and fall here are really nice. And right now we've got like 1.5 feet of snow coming tomorrow, so I guess I don't have a lot to brag about here in Connecticut. I literally have to stay overnight at my job from tomorrow night into Tuesday so that somebody will be able to get into work on Tuesday because I'll already be there. Luckily, I work in a hotel, so I get an actual hotel room. It's going to be great. All right, so again, I am Bridger, and thank you for joining us. Just a quick reminder, we do these live recordings every other Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time here, and you can find us at talesofcitizens.com if you want to get the audio podcast feed, or subscribe to us on the YouTube channel or on the Bridger 15 Twitch channel. Just search for Sound Strategy Network on YouTube or Bridger 15 on Twitch. Bridge R15. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get right into it, guys. Life in the Verse is a segment where we usually discuss what we've been doing while waiting for Star Citizen to get updated, or what we've been doing in Star Citizen. And today, what have you guys been doing? Callie, let's start with you.
Well, first and foremost, and I'm going to throw this one out there to the audience, I need suggestions. I ordered 11 pounds of cinnamon roll protein powder, and I am trying to find creative uses to, frankly, get rid of it. Now, that means eat it, because I'm not going to just waste the money. But at the same time, it's cinnamon roll protein powder. I've tried it in coffee. That goes poorly. I've tried steaming it. That didn't work out so well. I've tried just drinking the stuff, but no. So, anyone who's got a suggestion for me, throw it out there. I've only got 10.5 pounds left, so I should be fine. Other than that, RimWorld, as we discussed last time, great game, a lot of fun. Downloading Ring Commander 1.01 and getting a little test flight in there before I jump in. And waiting for the show.
Yes, indeed. All right. So, Gray, what have you been up to recently?
Man, and here I thought that my week was bad, and then I heard 11 pounds of cinnamon roll protein powder, and that blows League of Legends right out of the water.
It tastes like the LOL community.
Oh, so bitter.
Really?
So bitter.
So toxic. How are you even still alive?
I run a lot.
I have been playing a little bit of League of Legends. This is the new season, and clearly I hate myself a little bit. But starting to get back into the ranked, redoing rune pages, playing around with it. It's just about as terrible as one might expect, but it's going to blow a little bit of time. And play around a little bit with 1.01. Unfortunately, the 350R missile racks, despite still displaying, don't work. So, still no missiles for my beloved 350R.
I saw there's still a broken issue with the Auroras, too, on the 1.01 patch notes. They had that nice, recall letter. Did you guys read that?
Yeah, I did.
That essentially said, Robert Space Industries is working on the problem of your weapons overheating permanently. Okay, then. I was considering using that for the PSA, but they'd already done it. So I
They had.
can't do it. So, well, I haven't
Fly
been.
your Aurora, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, I haven't been doing too much. Mostly sucked into both League of Legends and Europa Universalis 4. Yet again, damn it. They keep coming out with new expansions that bringing me back. Like, I'm done with it. I'm like, all right, I got every last bit of entertainment I can get out of this game. And then there's an expansion, and they're like, we've just completely revamped all of these systems to make them way more intricate and better and more fun to use. Well, okay, then. I'll come back and play that. And then I was almost done, and then they just announced the thing where you're like, build your own country. Choose where you start. Choose your ideas and your background and your history. And, oh, now I gotta play it again. All right, so anyway, let's get right into it here, ladies and gentlemen. Quick shout out to Analog Dan on Reddit and WTFosaurus for making today's show possible, because unfortunately, due to, I believe, internet issues or constraints at the event location, there wasn't actually a live stream of these town hall discussions that took place during PAX South. So I got all of my information from Analog Dan's amazing wrap up on the Reddit. He basically live blogged the entire thing, and it's like 4.5, 5 hours. And then we also had WTFosaurus, who actually streamed. I mean, he streamed it, but it was very poor quality, so I thought I was watching a VHS, is really what it comes down to. That's the only reason I said videotaped. But
right.
he made it possible to actually hear what they were saying, so I was able to sort of use those two tools to put things into perspective. Also, really cool, thanks to the shout out, thanks to CIG for this amazing shout out. We were number one on their, well, not number one, we were the first one posted. The Alpha Boot Camp, the Star Citizen lore episodes were posted there, amongst many others of people putting together videos and of the various pieces of lore. So very cool. Thanks for that, CIG. We definitely saw the YouTube numbers spike on that, and I was very happy with how those lore pieces came out. So,
Very kind.
without further ado, we're going to jump right into PAX South, but the further ado is a quick announcement. If you have any suggestions, or if you think we missed any details from this PAX South episode and you're not in the chat telling us right now what we should be talking about, like a good viewer would, then you can go ahead and email us at feedback@talesofcitizens.com. Also, quick reminder, next week, your homework is, well, next 2 weeks from now, February 8th, don't forget to read Cassandra's Tears. There's a link in the show notes, which you can find in the YouTube description or on talesofcitizens.com.
Great
We'll
story.
link you to various things.
Really
It's a great story. It's on
Very
the Robert
solid
Space
story.
Industries website. It's under Spectrum Watch, and it's probably one of my favorites on there. It's definitely a lot less, it's a lot more upbeat, a lot less like horrible things happening and horrible people involved, and you're supposed to care about the horrible people, like Tales of Kid Crimson. I like Tales of Kid Crimson. I like Cassandra's Tears even better. So go ahead and read that. We're going to be doing a full work down of that, just like we did last 2 weeks ago. I hate last fortnight. Should we just call it a fortnight?
Yes,
I
in a
hate
fortnight.
not having a word. We do this bi-weekly thing, so I can't say last week and next week. I have to say last fortnight and this fortnight.
Next show, last show.
Yeah, that's not going to come as easily to me as it should. All right. Let's jump straight into our Spectrum Watch this week, which is all about PAX South. This is all the news and interesting details that we got coming out of that big showdown there. So let's talk a little bit. First, the thing that jumped out at me is their discussion of the planet side module and their plans for that. And one of the things that they specifically said is they wanted to avoid, now they didn't say it by name, but I knew what they were talking about was Orgrimmar, or any of the WoW cities, or any of the Guild Wars 2 cities for that matter. But Orgrimmar was the one that's closest to my heart, because I think of it as that place you go to the auction house and to go to the bank, and literally for no other reason, and while you're there, you're perfectly safe. So they wanted to avoid it being just this static place where you go to buy things, where nothing ever happens differently and you never have to be on edge. So they described sort of this situation where you might have encounters there that you don't always have, that it's not always going to be exactly the same. Like 90% of the time, nothing out of the ordinary is going to happen, and you'll be able to enjoy their beautiful, world where the NPCs are walking around with their own things, sort of like Skyrim. But unlike Skyrim, if you stand there and just wait, and just let all these days go by, it won't just be a complete repeat. Different things will happen. Maybe somebody's going to get mugged in front of you, like an NPC getting attacked by some bandits, or maybe somebody will walk up to you in an alley and offer you some really low prices on some space parts. They gave a couple of small examples like that, but that's the idea that I got. So I'm glad that ArcCorp, for example, the one that they've been talking about, is not going to be a space version of Orgrimmar, even though it's on the planet.
I look forward to buying a space Rolex personally from some shady guy in an alley.
You mean a Rolex?
Yes, the Rolex. I mean, we kind of had an inkling for that based on their cargo discussion, where you land on a planet and you pop open the door, you start loading cargo, and two guys walk in and want to take it from you, and a firefight ensues. So that gives you a kind of idea for what they had in mind, but it's really cool to see them flesh out what they want to do. How it is actually a dynamic world. Crime does happen, even if you're just standing there. So you may actually be the victim of something if you're just standing there minding your own business. It also makes me interested if characters and players will be able to interact in that same way. Can I, as space pirate, Captain A, run up and try to mug somebody and make a break for it? We'll see how that goes.
Yes, indeed. Gray, your thoughts. What would you like to see? What kind of encounters would you like to see? Encounters of the red light kind?
When you put it that way, it starts getting a little bit awkward there. In all honesty, I kind of have to fall on Callie's side here. We'll just see how that goes. I feel like with the pirate, the lawless systems, yeah, there is definitely a lot of potential for, honestly, a lot of player-generated content in a lot of ways. There'll probably be rings of people who try to FPS take cargo from people on the ground. But when you start talking about repeating or non-repeating NPC events, what that tells me is they would have to have some sort of a system that would play off of, well, what factors are going into this planet right now. There would have to still be some cause and effect.
That's true.
And as long as there's some cause and effect, there will be some level of predictability about it.
Yeah, that's
months down the road, perhaps, but it'll still be there.
They specifically said their overall goal, however the actual details shake out, their overall goal is, yeah, we expect you to be awed the first time you go to this place and you see everybody walking around and it seems like a living, breathing world, but the 5th or the 6th or the 7th or the 100th time you're there, if it's exactly the same, if you never have to worry, you think it's just a perfect, safe location, then it loses any interest it has, and it becomes just that place you go to sell stuff or buy stuff or what have you. And they're trying to avoid that. So how they do that is certainly going to be interesting. I'm glad that they're attempting to try.
Now, that said, there was something very positive about Orgrimmar back in the day, and it was a great place to meet people. And I'm hoping that CIG doesn't step away from the idea that you could have 100 people in a specific district, or whatever they want to call it, that you land on a planet that you could just run into in the bar, trying to find missions, trying to find escorts, you name it. It would be nice to be able to still have a level of player social interaction in those environments.
I think that's still the goal.
Make that,
I get the
how they would
impression
make that fit with the NPC counts. That's the question.
Sure. I think that is definitely going to be the case. I feel like, yeah, you're going to see a bunch of NPCs, but there's probably going to be at least as many players as NPCs, maybe a little bit less. I mean, I know that they keep throwing that number out, like 9 to 1, 10 to 1 in terms of being in the whole universe. I expect that most of the NPCs they're referring to there are the ones in space that you're going to encounter either as pirates or as traders or as mining ships, etc., or as the UEE Navy that goes around and patrols. Those are the places we're going to see the vast majority of those NPCs. I think we'll probably, when you're on the planet, you'll probably get a lot more interaction with people than, because let's face it, FPS has been doing lots of entities for a long time. I feel like the space aspect and the full physics of the things, that's going to be the main sort of limiting factor to having multiple players, many players in space. But I guess we'll see how it shakes out.
As long as they manage to keep it from, not being Space Orgrimmar, but they have to also manage to make sure it's not also Space Barons chat, because that would be a tragedy. Or worse, Space Westfall, and then we just cry.
Yeah.
Or wait, Goldshire. Goldshire was what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings us to the next thing. So there was a very interesting bit that was dropped by the man himself. Chris Roberts said, griefers will have their own instances. We will basically put griefers with other griefers. When referring specifically to the planet side instances. So if you are just run around and start just killing a whole bunch of people for no apparent reason, then theoretically you'll get put with other toxic people, and that way you'll be essentially out of the hair of the people who. Here's the problem I have with this. Go ahead. Go ahead.
There are lots of toxic people that are not going to be doing in-game criminal activities. I mean, the guys that are sitting there spouting racist horse shit in chat. Sorry, it's got the adult rating. They're the ones that I think of as just complete assholes that need to be sent to their own instance. But the guy who's running around taking pot shots at people until he's gunned down in the street by other players or the cops, well, that's just GTA 75, GTA in space. So I don't really see that as necessarily griefing or that bad a grief compared to a lot of the assholery that's possible.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I could actually see, in all honesty, some really terrible things showing up in contracts.
Yeah.
That's going to probably end up being a bigger problem overall for them to deal with than people just shooting at people. That said, the idea of them saying, hey, if you start shooting at people on this planet, they're not going to let you land in certain places.
That's pretty cool.
That could be an interesting way to handle it. Not just saying we're going to put them in an instance so, you're in the same bar, but you're not in the same instance ever. But actually going so far as to say, if you break security procedures, you get shuffled down into the place where only the poor people get to land.
You pissed off the authorities so much you can only sell to a fence who takes an 80% cut of the profit. That would suck.
I mean, this idea that...
the authorities ensure that you can sell your stolen goods to somebody who takes a bigger cut. I like that.
Right, but the idea that there would be different districts, so to speak, and when you wanted to land on a planet, we saw the planetary landing where they just automatically put you on a spot and they treated it like it didn't matter. I think it would be a much more interesting system for them to say, well, we're going to make it matter where you select to land on a planet. If there's multiple landing zones, say Earth has New York and Moscow and all those sorts of things there, maybe there's a little bit of a difference depending on your reputation where you get to actually set your ship down.
Now, we did also, during Tales of Kid Crimson, there was a piece, I think it was the beginning of Chapter 3, where he's going to Terra, and he essentially has all these different landing pads competing for his attention, and he has to decide which one he wants, and they're offering different lower prices and things so that he can try to, and you might be right. It might be that there's multiple places to land within the city, and some are more convenient locations that are right near the shopping district, and others you have to go through seedy locations in order to get there, where there could be NPC encounters that are of the more dangerous variety, of the mugging type variety.
Or some of them don't actually check your ID before you land or something like that. So,
right.
Yeah, you can show up there, but then you do have to put up with either the guy you're going to sell to is terrible, or like you said, you will get attacked by roving gangs of orphan children. Sorry, that's I'm playing RimWorld too much.
I see. Now, here's my problem with this whole thing.
Threats.
They say griefers will have their own instance. How do you... And then, here's the other thing. I'm not sure whether CIG uses the term griefer to be synonymous with criminal within their game world. Because later they say, quote, you kind of screwed around a day ago and shot another player and lost your right to carry a gun for 24 hours. If you then skirted the rules and got a friend to bring you a gun and you tried to continue the griefing, well, now we registered that you have had your license to carry revoked and you've been caught killing a player again, so we flip a switch where you are literally banished from that planet, unquote. So theoretically that is the security forces working logically consistently with what's going on there. But my concern is, how do you tell the difference between somebody who's griefing, which is theoretically their goal is to make you have a bad time, versus somebody who's a criminal where their goal is to make some money, which might mean that you have to die or lose your money in pursuit of that goal? Because those are two very different things. One of those is somebody playing outside of the game, trying just to hurt other people's enjoyment. Another one is playing within the game, and other people are hurt as a result, but their ultimate goal is to use the game's tools to have that. I mean, the point is that the game has that danger for a reason. It's because that's why Eve has the ability for their rules are they could just make everybody invulnerable when they're near a station or when they're this or when they're that. They don't on purpose because they want it to be dangerous. They want it to be scary. They want players to be able to reciprocate to each other. So if that's what they're going for and they want to encourage that to be a possibility, and yet at the same time they're saying, yeah, but criminals are going to get put in their own instance as if they're doing something wrong. But really they're just doing what they're supposed to do. I feel like they should be punished within the fiction, not outside of it, if that makes any sense.
I feel like it's almost two different statements, like when they say griefing versus criminals. Criminals do get their own instance. We talked about maybe various different landing spots. You know, if you're not a citizen in good standing, you're stuck over here in the boondocks on the wrong side of the tracks. At the same time, if, say, a bunch of players have reported somebody else, and I know that's abusable, I get that. It's been abused in other games, but let's just say that the community itself decides who the griefer is based on reports, and then that gets reviewed by a game master. The game master goes, yes, you're kind of a douche, and puts the little flag on there that says griefer, and off he goes to his own instance. Flag. He's still a citizen in good standing in the game, in the fiction, but he gets his own special instance of only other douches so they can have their own douche canoe, and it works out.
I definitely agree. If you have a GM that is sort of investigating these, and I think wasn't that a stretch goal? They're going to have game masters that will be
arbitration
bureau. Yeah. I assume that also has to do with griefing, in addition to things like contract negotiation or whatever else they were discussing. It's been a while, but I remember it has. I think it applied to griefing. But if that's how they're doing it, that makes sense. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a mechanical method to automatically determine that someone is or isn't a griefer, if you want to allow and encourage people to be criminals within the system. Because being a criminal looks an awful lot like being a griefer, and I think we've talked about this on previous shows. The only difference is the motivation behind the actions. Now, there are some griefers that go so far that it's clear that their goal is not personal gain. It's clear that their goal is something else, because they'll give up a whole bunch of resources in order to attain this other goal. And that's what makes it obvious that their goal isn't personal gain. They're not trying to steal and be pirates. They're trying to hurt other people's just by killing the same person over and over again, for example, and camping et cetera, or hunting that one person down and killing them. There's no bounty on that person's head. They're not stealing the cargo. The guy has no money anyway. That is obviously griefing. And
for them, we have an instance which is nothing but a bar full of Daleks.
Do you mean Daleks?
He did, but I was willing to let it go.
I'm sorry.
Exterminate.
One of those days.
Your nerd cred took a hit there, but that's okay.
You know what, though? It would be okay if you then explained to me that you only know of Doctor Who through reading books. But most people watch Doctor Who where they say the word
absolutely
Dalek.
Mangled the word coming out of my mouth.
Now,
this is why people watch the show, for these random things that can happen. That's why Star Citizen is going to be awesome, because it will have random things that can happen, you see.
That's true. I will say stupid things. They will come out of my mouth.
Yeah. For the first time, it wasn't me that was doing it. It's really what it comes down to.
I like to make at least 2 or 3 stupid comments per show. That was one of them. Enjoy.
There you go. All right, so I think that's kind of all I had to say about the planet side discussion that they had. I mean, they showed off some of the clothing options and things like that, and man, part of me goes, they're spending an awful lot of time on these shopping things. Why? I just want to shoot stuff in space, and that's what some of the people, I believe, one Tessacret in the chat was like 90% of the people bought this game to shoot stuff in space. So I'm like, they spend an awful lot of time talking about how they're going to make the shopping experience when you're shopping for clothes for your avatar to be really engaging and immersive. And then they showed off the ship retailer, and I was like, oh man, all that stuff is so cool. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, are they taking away resources from Arena Commander? I know the answer is no, but I'm still thinking it, man.
Well, you have to remember that the game has expanded a lot since a lot of us first pledged for it. I mean, back in the Kickstarter, it was effectively Wing Commander, the continuing saga, even though it wasn't called Wing Commander anymore because EA owns those rights. Now it's this whole MMO with the persistent universe and all the things they talked about but weren't sure they could pull off because they didn't think they'd raise enough money to pull it off. So that problem's out the window. I mean, the last sale alone, they've raised $500,000 in 24 hours. That's ridiculous. That's amazing, especially this late in the game. So now we have to care about avatars and customization and making it look really interesting because you want it to be as good as what's out there because they're competing now with things like WoW or Secret World or other generic MMO. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. So they got to make it look good.
Absolutely. And I am all for the kind of immersion that they put in there. Why don't we jump down to that one actually? Because they did a lot of demos about the interfaces and the Moby Glass, and I wish I could find them again. I saw them and then I couldn't find them anywhere. Oh, I think no. Clothing concepts. There was a good set of links to
Gotta be in here somewhere.
I think I found them on Reddit. I'll go look for them again and so I can show them off in the video. But the point is that there was a whole bunch of interesting things about how, like Elite, you don't pull down like just random windows appearing on your screen, like if you like in the X series, for example. If you want to sell something, you've got like a gajillion windows that you can click on and open, and it's all a HUD that is very gamey. It's obviously part of the game. It's not part of the in-fiction universe. And the idea that Chris Roberts says, well, that pulls you out of the game, right? So we wanted to make it more immersive, and that's what Elite did. And the first time I saw that within Elite, where the guy has to like look to the left and then navigate on one of the monitors in the ship rather than a floating window in front of him, I was like, that seems really cool. But these kinds of immersion things, the reason that they weren't usually done is because they do add a level of inconvenience. There's usually a couple extra steps that you need to go through, or they're less easy or obvious to see. So what do you guys think about of these efforts to make the windows and the Moby Glass and everything very built into the immersive factor? Is that going to wind up being good, or is it going to wind up being like, well, it was really cool at first, but now it just takes so many clicks to do anything, I'm tearing my hair out?
I'm actually of a split mind on this. It's kind of like the continuation of what he tried in the Freelancer game, where you landed on the planet and then you selected the location you wanted to go to, like the bar or the weapon/ship merchant or whatnot, and you talk to the character by clicking on them. But if it's really done in first person like this, and you got the Moby Glass and the pop-ups, it also leads to a in-game thing. Like right now on my phone, I can tell my watch or my phone or any other smart device to set a timer for this, or start a search and send the results to this device and pop up what you get. So it could mean a much easier way of getting through things like new missions that are posted and things like that, which would give you a great kind of savings of time. You could go to the bar to talk to the bartender and hear rumors, as an example. At the same time, here comes go kill Pink Unicorn the pirate for a 50,000 credit bounty. So you've got some options there. They could make it way easier, or if they go through the Freelancer style, a lot more clicking to get what you actually want.
Gray, your thoughts? We're kind of taking a look at him here. I did find it on Gamers Nexus, by the way, which had a very, very good and detailed article about it. Unlike some other media websites, they really did a great job. And then at the end, just put a little tiny thing that said, by the way, this is crowdfunded. Just keeping that in the loop there. Don't spend too much. You never know. It's not a full published game. Like, they didn't make that the main story. Look at all this stuff they're spent. Okay, we've done that before. We'll get back to that. But so let's go back to what we were doing here. Now I've lost it. There we go.
The Moby Glass.
The Moby Glass.
Yes. So I'm actually full on towards the realism on this one. One of the things I loved about the Elite Dangerous interface, please God don't get out the pitchforks, was the ability to turn left or right and be forced to do that to do anything. You had to turn your head. You had to turn in the cockpit to hit those buttons and do those things.
Yes.
That made me incredibly happy. That alone made me want to look at Elite Dangerous more.
Mm.
If they're willing to do that with the Moby-Glass and really force it to feel like you're immersed, like you're part of this universe, and they don't go overboard. Obviously, if they purposely make it clunky, we've got a problem.
Mm.
But if they make it feel like something that is a realistic user interface that may just be in universe, that would be perfect.
This is an example right here. You can see this is actually the way they've done it here, I think, is great, because what you're seeing is at the bottom of this picture, you can see there's somebody's arm. So the Moby-Glass has always been depicted as like a piece of equipment that's on your forearm, right? And you can see the forearm, or the arm being held sort of in front of him, and the hologram is then projected up into his vision. And you can see through that. There's a room beyond this. If you look towards the top of the picture, you can see the ceiling with the lights. So what you're looking at, though, here is a very, very low transparency. Like, this is almost completely covering the view. And it looks like a standard game menu. So it looks like you haven't lost anything by making it immersive for this particular way that they've executed it.
Yep. Now, I'm curious how this is going to look in something like Oculus Rift.
Oh.
I can already think about how it's going to look with the head tracking device like Track IR, where you could put it up and then turn your head or lean to one side to look around it at what you're walking into. But something like Oculus Rift, where you can do that as well, would be really cool. So when you hold down the tab key to engage it, which with the Rift you can't actually see when you press it, but separate issue. Then you can lean around it to see what's over there, or you can look up and down and kind of immerse yourself in the view. That would be really cool and add to the realism that Gray was talking about. So that should be a lot of fun. And the way they've done it, it looks like it won't have to be something where you're going to have 1,000 extra menus to click through or have to walk over. But they might have a proximity feature. I think they had talked about that before. When you walk into a new building, it starts a new sales pitch at you on your Moby-Glass device. I could be wrong. I maybe misremember that comment.
You know what I'm looking forward to? You guys seen the new Microsoft goggles thing, right?
Microsoft goggles? No, I haven't heard of this.
They're selling these 3D hologram goggles, or will be. Worth looking at, because I would say that it could potentially influence some of the way that they treat that Moby-Glass advertising and things like that. Basically, it allows 3D hologram projection in the comfort of your own home, but you have to be wearing the goggles to see them and manipulate them and so on and so forth.
Now, let's take a look at that one right there. Not this one. Hang on. This is again coming from Gamers Nexus, by the way. Highly recommend you check out this article. It was very well done. And this example here is essentially a heads-up display style, as if you've got, a futuristic Star Citizen helmet on and it's projecting this into your vision like a Google Glass, essentially, right? So I really like this method too. And there's a couple other here that I don't think. Oh yes, this one is like essentially like an elevator to go from one place to another. It just has a little holographic thing. And I think these are all concepts right now, right? They all look way better than the holotable, is what it comes down to. Because people saw the holotable and were like, I don't know.
Let's be honest here as well, though. We're not talking about the same thing as the holotable with this. That's an elevator thing. That's basically them making a interactive pane of text rather than a 3D rotating ship that you move guns to.
And people in the chat are saying that Oculus Rift sucks because you won't be able to type with it on, to which somebody else said, well, learn to touch type. Well, there was a prototype of a different one that was an Oculus Rift that was essentially had cameras on the front of it, right? So you could flip a switch in the software on your mouse, on your joystick or whatever, and it would replace your view of the game with a view of what's in front of you on your desk, so you could see or pick up a drink or what have you. And I thought that was very clever. Or maybe even better, you could sort of have that fade in a little bit, so it's overlaying, or it's transparent between the game. You see 50-50, part game, part what's in front of you. You don't need to see a lot to be able to reach for, the bag of Doritos or the drink or type something real quick. It's easier to do that.
My keyboard's already under my desk. I haven't been able to see what I've been typing for years. I find it much, much easier just to have my hands under there and have a whole desktop in front of me.
What was it?
I-
DOS Keyboard was one of the first ones I saw that did a lot of mechanical keyboards, and they make a model that has no letters on it, no indication of what the keys are at all. It's just a standard
Yes,
104 keyboard. But
all black.
if you're worried about
man.
like your mom or your sister who you live with, like messing with your computer, just get that, and they can't do anything because they have no idea where any of the keys are. It's great. I wish DOS Keyboard was sponsoring the show, so I got money for that. It's just a reference. Okay.
I mean, I touched. Well, back to the Oculus Rift comment real quick. I touch type as well. My issue is, and I watched a great video of a guy playing War Thunder with the Rift on, and he also had like the Razer Orb and a couple other devices plus his joystick, and he had like a special seat for it. It was an awesome setup. But you watch him as he's like blindly groping for his stick. And then, he got his hand on his throttle, but he needs to go and reach something else. And then he's just blindly groping for the throttle again when he's got the Rift on. If your hands are actually on your control surfaces and they're not going to move, you're set. But if you're going to be reaching out to grab something, you can get in trouble. A camera idea would be awesome, but one comment we have in Twitch is that would be hard on the eyes. And I think that might be true. It would be really difficult to get your eyes, focusing between the two things.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I was thinking that you'd only like what you're talking about, trying to find something that you put down like the stick, or you're going to the mouse, or you're trying to hit, like if you have a hotkey for F12, right? And you've got your hands on, to take a screenshot or what have you. You've got your hand on your joystick and your throttle, and then you need to hit F12 or some other button that's not in the normal place, or you're not typing a message. You're like, where the hell is F12? You got to like feel all over your keyboard for a while until you find F12 and hit random buttons. Or you just, very quickly hit the thing that swaps your view, hit F12, and then swap it right back. And people in the chat are like, why don't you just lift up the Oculus Rifts over your head?
You can.
That sounds like it sounds like a logical suggestion.
But
I don't think it is.
If there's motion tracking in the Rift when you lift it up, it's going to think you're looking up. Then when you press that screenshot, well, then you're boned.
There you go. That's another very good example. But yes. All right. So where were we? We were on all over the place here. So the Moby Glass thing. So I know you've played a bunch of Elite Cthulhu. How did you find their implementation of the sort of immersive menu setup?
Without track IR, when I was just using the keyboard, it was kind of annoying to force it to look over and then press the button. But setting up on a hat switch and getting it going was fine. As soon as I got track IR, when I was able to, when I turned my head, the whole view shifts and it brings up the menu immediately, and then where you move to it, it shows it there. Made it way more immersive, way more interesting, and much faster to use. It almost felt unfair in some cases. For navigating. If you're in the middle of a firefight, and you need to get out of there, and you're like, okay, where am I going to go? This is before there was the quantum drive where you jump to it and get out, equivalent. The in-system drive. You'd look over, hit the thing, hit the button, and it would jump to space right then and there, which was way easier to get out of a dogfight you didn't want to be in anymore than the guy who had to press the button, and then his ship is basically on autopilot while he's navigating through this menu trying to find the right thing to hit before he dies. So it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed using track IR, the head tracking pickup, and actually going through the menus. It made it much more immersive. Arma 3 is another good example of a game that uses head tracking as well to peek around corners and things like that.
Really?
I'm looking forward to that in the FPS.
Definitely. I'm just so... I can't wait until like the Oculus Rift gets here in like it's like essentially the iPhone 4 version or the iPhone 3G version. Like the first version of Oculus Rift is gonna have some rough edges. I think it's gonna make some people sick a little bit. It's not gonna be quite as high resolution as you want. They've already been talking about those kinds of problems that they're having right now with the development kits. I'm fairly certain that when they launch, it's going to be better than the current development kits, but it's not going to be to the point where it's just like, it's amazing, there are no drawbacks, right? Like, the first version of Oculus Rift is not going to be there, but like the second or third version are going to be so great. And I just keep imagining that day, and I keep asking myself the question, will Star Citizen actually be released when that day comes. Which one will come first? Star Citizen or Great Oculus Rift? I don't know.
That's actually a good question. We know that the first commercial version of Oculus Rift is coming out soon-ish.
They haven't given a date yet, have they?
Not that I've seen, but I may have just lost the thread on that.
All right. Okay, I don't even remember. What were we talking about? We were talking about mobiGlas and all that stuff. Okay, let's move on. There's a couple more things we definitely want to talk about here, so let's move on. Now, they started talking about a quantum drive, and I haven't heard them refer to that yet. We knew that they were going to have something different from jump points to get across from one section of system to another, but this is the first time I think that they've given it a name, or if they have, I've missed it until now. They're calling it a quantum drive. And when I first heard them say quantum drive, I was thinking to myself, oh, finally, guys. We're finally going to put the idea of 0.2 light speed out of your head. Like, that number's been floating around forever. But then they go and say, and that's, the quantum drive is how you're going to be getting across system. Its max speed is about 0.2, 20% the speed of light. I was like, no! It can't be! Pluto is 13 light hours away! You can't cross a system in 8 to 10 minutes, which is what they said you could do. They need to tell me what they mean.
In your frame of reference, you're moving 0.2 c, but in the frame of reference of the system,
you're actually moving faster than light. Okay, it's quantum drive. You could make up all kinds of things and say quantum drive.
Exactly.
Actually takes a shortcut that actually means that you're going less than 13 light hours.
Your ship only accelerates to a point of 0.2 c, but the bubble around your ship is moving faster than the speed of light.
Right. If that's what they wind up saying, I'll be totally happy. And to be honest, it's just a nitpick, but it's my nitpick, damn it.
Yes.
There's also some physicist who just had a vein burst in their forehead as they said that. But.
Oh God.
Yeah.
We need to call Tim Young and make sure he's okay. It's okay. He's in Perth right now. I don't think his internet's fast enough to even find out about this until tomorrow. Wait, it's tomorrow already.
It is tomorrow somewhere.
Damn it. I always forget that. He's definitely dead. Okay, there's nothing we can do about it.
On the other hand, if Tim actually attempts to apply quantum physics to this game, I think he's going to have a bad time. And that goes for everyone, really.
All right, so so the quantum drive. Let's talk a little bit about the quantum drive, and with that, let's bring up this awesome image. Because holy crap, this is crazy cool. I'm just using the GIF that somebody made.
Based on the quality of the recording, I'm guessing this is actually. It's going to be just like any other UFO sighting. It's going to be as grainy as possible. It's not real. Someone found a little fuzzy thing and stuck it on the film, and then they claim it's a UFO with light, so they made a model. There's no way it's real and that's in engine and actually happening, because that looks way too cool and too much fun. It's like you're actually going to be flying past DS9 to get somewhere.
Yeah. There was a great section of it. Actually, there was a video from Gamers Nexus as well that I'll pull up here real quick. Let me get to that. It was right here. Okay, so this is the higher quality version, and actually this is interesting because the GIF that we just saw was taken from the rear perspective of the ship. This one's taken from the front, but they both appear to be exactly the same sort of rendered pre-flight. Like nobody's flying alive. The mechanics aren't in there. And this is, by the way, a Gladiator. That was bugging the hell out of me for the longest time. I couldn't figure out what the hell that was. Yeah. It's not a Hornet. It looks like a Hornet from the front and the back, but it takes it you need to get the top shot to understand it's a Gladiator. There he goes. Okay, so you see the top from the back and from the front there. And I love how there's those little shafts going off in different directions. Those lead to different systems. And some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller. That's really cool.
This tells me Squadron 42 is going to involve a good amount of wormhole exploration.
You think?
Because they wouldn't have had this in there if they didn't need it for Squadron 42, which they want to release first. And so they'd have put this kind of stuff in the back burner to get our other art assets done for Squadron 42. But there must be the point in that story now, pure conjecture on my part, that they need this as soon as they can get it, and they're going to show it to us because it's cool.
Yeah, this is really interesting. It's very, what was it? Was Descent? Was that the one that you were flying through the very tight corridors? Is that the one I'm thinking of properly?
Oh, yeah.
And then you had to make very quick rapid changes to the to go suddenly. Oh, we're gonna need to go left. And those are always very cool. So this is actually very high speed. It does give you the impression that you can't stop, like you're a shark, when you're going through here, and if you stop, you die. So you have to keep the speed going, which means trying to branch off into those side paths looks like it's going to be really difficult. Maybe you can slow down a little bit to take those turns, but those look.
What if it depends on your engine? I mean, we know the Freelancer, for example, has this great big special jump drive engine. What if that lets it traverse much more slowly while turning at the same speed? That would give you a big edge to
more
things
control,
like 315P. Yeah.
Like the default, like going through the wormhole's trying to suck you to the other side as fast as possible, and your jump drive slows you down enough to navigate it without crashing.
That's
a really
strikes
cool
me
idea.
as the only reason to have different jump drives in the game is to change your speed of navigation and maybe your ability to maneuver.
Turn. Yeah,
because I imagine you're not using regular thrusters inside the wormhole. You're probably using a special quantum thruster of some variety to maneuver around inside there. Because it's not normal space, right? Yeah, you got to stay inside a warp bubble. Anyway, so there are some really interesting things that we learned from this. So let's just go over those very quick. So they already said, crossing a star system could take 8 to 10 minutes, but the way that this works, a quantum drive, it kind of works like in Elite. What is the method they use to cross star systems? They call that. They have a name for that, right?
They do, and I keep wanting to say system drive,
something...
which is wrong. But it's the hyperdrive. Yeah, hyperdrive.
Is it hyperdrive?
I think so.
Which one?
The one that
I am terrible at names.
You have to sit there and it loads for 30 seconds as it and then zoom, you're engaged.
Yeah, hyperdrive.
Is it hyperdrive? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's similar to that to an extent. They've described that they're trying to make it skill-based, or at least more skill-based, not just hit a button and go. But you set a destination, and then your computer essentially calculates what you need to do, and it gives you this series of concentric circles you need to fly through in your HUD, essentially, right? You see them in your HUD, but you have to fly through that section of space and line it up properly, and then after you've done that, then you'll go into the quantum jump, which allows them to add a number of things. Like, for example, you can't just use it to immediately jump out of there when you're attacked, for example, because anything moving in front of you or any damage that moves you around and jostles you will mess up the calculations and you'll have to restart. And this could take 30 to 60 seconds, maybe depending upon the strength of your drive or the quality of it. So that's essentially how the quantum drives are going to work. It sounds kind of interesting. I think the wording they used is you can be interfered with during this boot up time, this warm up time. I think that's a fun term. And jump points, on the other hand, I don't get the impression that jump points will have any spin up time, but instead you do have to manually navigate them, and this is very interesting, all the time. Even if they've been plotted, you still have to manually navigate them. And I think Chris Roberts was the one talking about this, and he said it's basically the difference between easy mode and hard mode. Hard mode jump navigation is no assist, it's never been plotted before, you don't know what's coming around the corner. Easy navigation would give you HUD elements that say you should be flying down here because as soon as you come around this corner, there's going to be a big thing that you're going to crash into unless you're on this specific route, right? So that's essentially what jump point navigation does, is it gives you that heads-up display that says you need to go through and follow, go through these brackets or this circle in order to have an easier time of it. So it should be fairly easy to do a jump point unless you're trying to go through with a ship that's a little too big or bigger than the safety margin recommends.
Or has a really crappy drive. Yeah.
Or has a crappy drive. They did mention that there will be situations, and again, we've sort of talked about this in the past, they referenced it again, that there will be situations where a smaller ship can essentially take a shortcut that a larger ship can't because that jump gate is too small.
Which might be some of those branching holes that we saw in the video.
I was about to say with the branching holes, those were pretty small by the look of it. But if you'll pardon my attempt to make sure this Tales of Citizen again ends up with an adult rating, these strike me as the duck vaginas of the space world. There are going to be a lot of branching dead-end paths that go to places you do not want to go, and then you probably die.
Well, that's
That
another
was,
interesting piece, right? They specifically said originally if you fail the jump navigation, you're just going to be split into a gajillion pieces all over the universe and die. But now they've kind of leaned at, now that you have to manually do it no matter what, if you fail the jump, i.e. crash into one of those things or crash into the side, you'll be pulled back into normal space with some damage to your ship as a result. You shouldn't have done that, obviously. And where you end up is determined by how far through the wormhole that you made it. So if you were
times.
like, they specifically said, like, if you made it 90% of the way towards your destination, you might wind up somewhere in that system that you meant to go, but not necessarily orbiting the correct planet or orbiting the correct moon or what have you.
Power banks
right
suggest they take you to the griefer instances.
If you fail your jump, then you just get there and it's like prison where you show up and they're like, new meat. Oh no.
That's interesting. It also kind of implies that, let's say you got halfway and you fell out. So does that mean you're in deep space? Does that mean that it's not necessarily a jump point so much as like a jump string? And as long as you're near where it's at, you can find it and get your way back in there and fly.
It'll probably dump you out at the nearest gravity well, I would imagine.
Okay.
I don't think it would dump you in the middle of deep space. Because what if the part of your ship that was damaged was the jump drive?
Well, hopefully you brought an arc welder, right?
And I believe that they sort of mentioned in
Self-destruct.
the past that you need jump gates to stabilize the wormholes properly, right? So if you're in deep space, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Unless they have plans for like a special ship that can jump whether or not it has gates. That might be military technology. Like the Bengal might have one of those.
That would make a real mockery of the current strategic element we see in UEE and other empires protecting their borders. If you could just jump wherever you wanted, whenever you wanted, you could get around behind everybody's force, bombard their planet, and then jump away, and they'd be looking at you funny.
Ooh, the last piece that was on here that was really intriguing is that jump points, the wormholes that connect these things, will shift and change over time.
Yes.
And so they have to be replotted, essentially, giving that, which creates more missions for people that want to explore. There might be a mission that says, pilots are reporting that, wormhole jump gate, X972C connecting Stanton to Terra or what have you is not plotted properly or is causing problems or having multiple failures, and we need it to be replotted from scratch. And then you have to do the hard mode version without the easy navigation because you need to redo it. The easy one was based on older data, right, essentially? So that's a really cool idea. And that essentially they also said it might just like close, like wormholes aren't there anymore. They've shifted. It's now somewhere else, and somebody has to go find where that new wormhole's exit is in like the Stanton system. Otherwise, it's just not connected to Terra anymore.
Which would be interesting because that might, if they see, this is a good balancing behavior. Metagaming here, getting out of the fiction of it. If you see that people are making very safe runs between, say, New Pittsburgh and Terra, and they're having no trouble making a ton of money on steel, you close that exit and you force them to go through some contested systems, and suddenly that run is a lot more expensive, steel prices go up, the economy is back in balance. That could be really interesting to see how they choose to close or open these points. I don't think it's going to be random, however. Something tells me it's going to be carefully planned when they close them, or even if they just change them and move them from an area near, like, say, a moon to further out, taking another 2 or 3 minutes to get there. That adds a little more delay to each shipment of whatever good is going through that system.
Yep,
So all of that would balance it.
I'd love if, like, essentially this living, breathing world has, like, a cadre, a cult. I think cadre is the right word.
Cadre is probably the right word.
A committee of essentially game masters. Like, I'd love if they made a position inside of CIG, like, your job is to run Bearing. Like, you represent all of the NPC. Like, when Bearing builds a new factory somewhere, that's the decision that this one designer makes. So he's essentially playing his own little game with the economy. Now, he's doing it in order to fix problems that the players have probably created, right? It's too easy to do this. There's too much supply of that. We need to do this over here. But he's doing it ostensibly as, like, essentially the CEO of this in-game, in-fiction company. Like, when NPCs build new facilities, there's somebody behind that making those decisions. That would just be really cool.
It would
Oh
be
my
really
god,
cool.
you know what they need to do?
Oh.
They need to hire Eric Peterson to do mocap with a Donald Trump wing.
There we
Nice.
go. There we go. Thank you very much, Eminius Sleepus. Hyper Cruise and Super Cruise were the words I was
Yes.
looking for Elite. I knew I was missing the
Yeah.
correct terminology there.
But then the drive name is like Frameshift Drive. They have a lot of names in there for that stuff.
When I first saw somebody do like a Super Cruise, I'm like, that is amazing. That looks
Yeah.
so cool. But I know
And-
I still can't buy it. I still know that after you do that, you're like, well, now I'm done with all the cool stuff. I saw the cool sights, I did the cool things, and now it's just boredom and repetition over and over again.
It's a good game. I recommend it to people that are looking
I'm gonna
for
wait.
a
I know that
traditional
it's
space sim.
I know that it's fun. I just know that it's limited, and if I wait for another year or so, there will be lots more for me to do when I first jump in. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm gonna
Alright,
get
alright.
Elite. I'm just gonna wait until it's more finalized, more content, essentially.
But they released the
deal.
game. It's feature complete, baby.
Lumavox
Deafening
asks,
silence means we believe you.
Lumavox asks, will we have an episode about the gameplay opportunities for players that didn't back the game so they will get in game without a ship? I don't think you can buy the game and
what?
not have a ship. I think even if
There
you didn't
was-
back it,
All come with a ship.
All the packages come with the ship. There
even
was a
after it
comment-
launches, you're still going to get a ship.
There was a comment made where that particular belief comes from what I recall. There was a comment made at one point that, let's say I go out without insurance and I lose my last ship. How do I keep playing the game? What can I do?
Right.
And the answer
Rentals.
was, rentals was one answer. A loan was another, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, debt. You
And-
you take out
yeah.
a ship loan,
Yeah.
and then you have to pay it back.
And then the final one was taking jobs with other players. So that was kind of the game opportunities there. I'm not sure it's a whole show kind of thing. I could be wrong.
No, yeah, I
There
think
were
that does
also-
answer it. Yeah.
There were also opportunities, apparently, to take public transit to places
Yes.
where they needed you to shuttle things.
One of the stretch goals, yeah.
So you could potentially take public transit to a place where they need you to drive a freighter from point A to point B.
Hmm.
That's all you have to do.
To
Or you need to
clarify,
be a gunner in a freighter from point A to point B.
what I said earlier, I didn't mean that you should just take any mook in the world and just make them the CEO of this NPC corporation. I meant you should have a designer in CIG who has that job. It's like amongst their other duties in CIG, they make the decisions like, oh, in this patch we're gonna have Bering do this, and we're gonna have Klaus and Werner do that, and we're gonna have this mining corporation start a brand new project over here in order to change the economy and keep it interesting and make the players like. Otherwise, if the players learn the economy, it doesn't really shift anymore. Then it's no longer fun. The fun of playing the economy game is when things change, being the first one to realize where the next new economic opportunities are going to be, right? That's the fun of the economic game. That's why people play the stock market, essentially, right? That's why they call it playing, I think, because it's a
Yes.
game. But my point is, sorry, that is not just a random player like, you won the personality contest, you get to control Clarson Werner. No, that's not what I meant. We don't want the guy named literally _ Hitler to be in charge of an NPC corporation. Thank you for
I don't know. I mean, we need some enemy corporations to take down.
He's gonna
LexCorp
put
shows
together-
up, right?
But he might start ArcCorp on the final solution for the Xi'an. We don't want that.
Oh no, we don't want the
no.
final solution for Xi'an. No. All right.
I don't think we want the words final solution in any patch notes.
Unless it's for the Tavaran. I hate those guys.
Oh yeah, well
Oh boy.
they're so human-like.
Stupid Raj. All right. Anyway, the next piece I wanted to talk about here, because we still have a few things to go, is this is a really interesting demo, and this is the only place I could find it was on VidMe. Somebody captured this. Let me pull this up. This is the newest iteration of their star map.
Yeah, which is
Man,
pretty
pretty
cool. It looks like a strategy game into and of itself, actually.
Yeah.
Commodity prices, missions that are available just by clicking on the system here.
Although the sound
That information,
seems a lot like Apple's
maybe
1984
stale
commercial.
since Chris
Right?
was, setting the
The
pattern.
echo
Obey.
and everything.
He wanted the concept of, information
So
actually
that is really kind of like definitely a step up from the previous one, right? It's got all sort of the in-engine graphics of the stars and things looking a lot cooler. But he
Look at all that
did
shiny.
mention, he
Yes.
did mention in that bit of discussion there, they are going to attempt to have, market data and things on this kind of star map, allowing you to see what stuff's in demand, what stuff has surplus over here. But
Where your landing points are.
but that the
Will be
information
out
that
of date.
yes, but that the information that you have at any given time is essentially time delayed. So the further away you're looking, the less accurate that information will be. So if you're in here and there's a place that's like 10,000 light years over there versus, someplace else in the same system information is going to be very quick and very new and very on target and accurate. This information about that system way across the galaxy, that is going to be like an hour,
Pretty
2
off.
hours, 3 hours out of date or whatever within real life hours. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
how are they going to do that? How are people not just going to set up a new version of Kazam or like the websites that track that stuff? Like somebody will they'll have a bot in every single system reporting the accurate prices to a website. That's going to
People
happen.
will. It'll happen.
It will.
But I think the important thing to note is that that's going to only work for commodities trading. And I think you're going to find that even if the prices were delayed, commodities are going to be razor edge in this game. I'm not convinced that you'll be able to make a huge living doing nothing but trading those products. I think the big money is going to come off of specifically timed missions and small loads and things that happen on planets at specific times. And that if you have like a hull C, sure, at that point you're going to be looking at, I'm only going to be making X amount per unit of steel or anything else. But that will be the quickest way to do that thing with that kind of ship. Anybody else, I think you're probably going to be looking at a situation where you land on ArcCorp. You're much more likely to find a mission doing specific hauling there than you are to just do straight up commodities trading.
Yeah, I mean, Dostro in the chat says, I really like this idea of the time delayed, data changes and even time delayed communications and things. I love that idea too. I just know that it's completely infeasible with out of game communications technology existing, unfortunately. I mean, even to the point where if you somehow make it so there's no way for a bot to scan the information, they're just going to have like some guy in every system like typing in the information every 15 minutes. Like that's going to happen for the large groups, and it's going to completely bypass it, and it's going to just handicap everybody who doesn't use the exterior features, which is a real shame.
It is, but there are potential solutions to that with the time delay. One that I came up with just brainstorming was that it won't be a mission like deliver 10 units of steel to New Terra, or to Terra, sorry. But it will be something along the lines of the request goes out among the corporation channels, and the actual mission is deliver 10 units of steel from this landing spot on New Pittsburgh to Terra, and you will receive the following amount of money. And because you're a member of X Guild, or your reputation with New Pittsburgh Steel Smelters Rainbow Coalition is good enough, you can take that mission and fly it back over there. So only people who are have the reputation to get the mission in the first place can get it, and only people who meet certain criteria with big enough freighter for 10 units can take that ship if they're in that ship when they accept the mission. And you can only take that mission at the location, the landing area where the steel is waiting. So if you have all three of those things going, it really cuts down on how valuable the out-of-game communication is. It is still valuable, because if I knew that the mission was going out somehow, like let's say they post it, in Terra, then I could tell all my guild members or my fleet members,
some of which might
head
be
to
in
Pittsburgh.
Terra.
Yeah. On the other hand, if they don't post that until the mission is accepted by the NPC corporation, and again, this is not EVE Online where they're giving control of the economy to the players, so they have control over who's ordering what NPCs ordering what steel, and it could be that the only missions that are really privy to being gamed by out of game communications are the player-run corporation missions. At which point, the players, the player corporations are probably going to want to use their own internal haulers anyway. It would be, in theory, cheaper or better to keep that money in-house, where the guy who just ran your steel for you can go buy a gun so we can hunt pirates with you next time, something like that. So it would actually way cut down on it if you made these all transport and delivery missions versus find your own steel. And then it could be things like the mining missions where you go and harvest, resources and minerals. Could do something similar where the mining post wants X units of beryllium, and the only beryllium sources they'll accept it from are ships that have a high enough reputation with that local mining guild, as an example. So you can use in-game mechanics like reputation to cut down on how much out-of-game chat is adding to it. You may still get a bonus. Like if I'm sitting in a system and I say, dude, they're offering 10 times the average beryllium price right now, over here in the Space Whale, then people in my guild, my corporation, will fly to that and use it. But that's, you still have to get out there from wherever you're at, and people are already in system are benefiting from that, from actually going mining local rocks and bringing it back. And if they don't have a high enough reputation, they're out.
There's also the idea here that there are these reputation missions where people are going to say we want this. It may be within a certain amount of time. They might say we need this production quota of this resource in this period of time, and you have to accept it, as a mission or via an in-game communication, which is another thing that's worth noting. They might do in-game communications that migrate outward along with the prices or anything else. You've got very limited time, and at that point, when your ship received that communication, you would be capable of accepting that mission and doing that hauling for that price. So if you went to ArcCorp with 200 tons of steel that are currently on board or whatever it is, but you hadn't accepted that in-game mission when you picked that up and told them, hey, I'm bringing you this much steel, they would pay you the market price rather than whatever their special price was. This idea that you wouldn't be able to hoard all of these resources and then just wait for missions to come out. You'd have to actually say, I am buying 200 units of steel from New Pittsburgh for this request that you just sent out on all frequencies to the whole universe in waves going outward.
They even talked about how sometimes when you take a mission, and this gets to the occupation stuff they talk about later, like if you accept a mission, sometimes the mission doesn't disappear, and it's like a multi-person mission, and it's like until somebody completes the mission, it stays up there, right? It's not just like accept and it's closed and nobody else can do it. Some of those missions will exist, but some will be missions that multiple people have to compete. For example, there's 50,000 tons of steel on New Pittsburgh that needs to get from there to someplace else. Okay, yeah, but the Miscall Sea can only carry 1,000-ton units or whatever you want to call it. So it's going to take many, hundreds of player trips or player/NPC trips for it to get from one place to the other. So the mission stays open until the last piece of load of steel gets loaded into somebody's thing. That kind of thing could exist too. In addition, there could be, things like you need to hunt down and kill these pirates over here. Well, okay. But if somebody who's in the system got that mission pop up first and they're already on the way and you're 3 systems away, the mission pop-up didn't immediately come up for you, it came up 10, 15 minutes later, you're right, that would be very difficult to be able to track real time in an outside website unless there was some bot that was able to hook into their system somehow or scan the screen and update real time, which unfortunately I think is going to be the case.
So look for the very poorly named Aurora in every spaceport and go after that guy.
329612-B.
That's the guy. That's the guy. You take a pistol, you shoot him
or
back
just a
the
bunch
head,
of Chinese
and then you run
characters.
For it. Oh, all the racism.
Oh no.
No. Chinese gold farmers knew what was going on.
Yeah.
They could make you rich in WoW pretty quick.
All right, so let's see. Next on the list here, Oh, there was some really cool discussion about how planets are going to be dynamically changing based on what's going on economically. So if the planet becomes more industrial and more factories are being built on the planet, smog might build up. Don't worry about the fact that this is like the super future, and we've already figured out how to make smog go away here. But just pretend that they don't care about health in the future on New Pittsburgh or whatever.
But you're also talking about companies like ArcCorp,
right?
These mega corporations,
and they own their own
really
planets.
Don't give a crap. Some of them have actually bombed their own planets into oblivion just for the sake of checking weapons. I mean,
they go in the Griefer instance. They go in the Griefer instance.
They go in the Griefer.
Yeah. The
NPCs go in the Griefer instance. The weapons testing grounds.
Yes. So
you land your ship and instant missile spam from everywhere.
So the other thing they mentioned is that essentially, like, they've already talked about the economic pipeline. I think we talked about this on a show a long time ago, is how, planets will demand certain things and supply certain things. And one of the things that planets with a population of people on them will supply is workers that need to get from point A to point B, or will need to be in position in order to have the factory work at full capacity, right? Well, they mentioned how, okay, they've also split that up into different kinds of workers. So, like, a planet that gets a lot of industry will provide a lot more blue-collar workers, or demand a lot more blue-collar workers than white-collar workers, essentially. And that's a really interesting, you just see guys in blue collars walking around instead of white collars. It dynamically adjusts,
Well, I look forward to economic collapse on some of these planets, and then the instancing that happens
so
planet
cool.
side, like you get caught in a riot, like a miners' riot or something, and no cops, and the NPCs are hostile to you because you're not a miner.
Those kind of events, just if they just happened, it's like a big patch that said, this week in the new patch we're having mining. They just put out a patch. It has a few balance changes, and then you hear grumbling every time you go to Planet X. There's people complaining about the taxes and that the wages are going down again, and blah blah blah, and should we strike? And then like 2 days later, there's like somebody standing on a soapbox in the middle of the square, and he gets arrested if you happen to be there. Whoever's there takes some footage and puts it on YouTube and be like, guys, look what happened. It only happened one time. One time. Nobody else gets to see that. And then, like, it just evolves over time. It's sort of similar to the way Guild Wars 2 is doing things, except better, because you have to have the guts to say, stuff only happens one time. Whoever was there gets to be there. That's what makes it special. Except you just make that happen everywhere, different things, so that everybody gets to feel special by happening. Over the course of a year, you'll probably at least be in there once. Anyway, that would be really cool.
They wouldn't even need to patch it. It could just happen real time as the economy adjusts.
Well, right. I just meant that they'd have to patch the assets in to make that work. But yes, you're right.
Well, yeah.
All right. The last thing that I wanted to talk about here, because they did give a much more in-depth discussion of how the mining system might work, and their discussion of how they would try to make multi-crew ships really interesting. And just to go over it pretty quickly, they described it's not necessarily a solo activity. Anybody who's played EVE Online knows it's a solo activity where you go up and upstairs and make a sandwich and hope that your ship is still there when you get back. Because it's, sitting there. Brr, brr, brr. Hey, I made money. Brr, brr. Hey, there was some rare ones in that. Brr, brr. Oh, God, pirates run.
Sending out mining drones was a very dynamic activity for all involved.
So they said in Star Citizen they didn't want it to be so boring and repetitive. Well, at least less boring. So they described the following positions in a ship that was dedicated to mining. You'd have the pilot, whose job is to maneuver around the asteroid to get a really good vein, to find a good spot. And then there's the beam operators, maybe more than one, that are essentially in little turrets on the outside hull of the ship that are aiming the main mining lasers. And that's important because what you blow out of the asteroid will then be picked up by the ship, potentially by the cargo docking operator. And he has an attractor beam and a repulsor beam, and he can, like, pull in the valuable ore and, like, push away the Vespar. What is it, Velspar?
Velspar, yeah.
But then the interesting thing comes in that the contents of each individual asteroid are unknown, and the scanner person who's sitting at the scanning operations desk is essentially trying to keep track of anything volatile inside of the asteroid, because you're pumping huge amounts of energy to blow these pieces of asteroid apart. And if you accidentally hit a piece that they said was nitroglycerin, I don't know why does nitroglycerin exist in nature? I think this whole thing just smacks of being completely bog out, not real science. This is not how real asteroids work. They don't explode if you hit them with lasers. They're not like cars in action movies. But
if it's, say, you're mining a comet and you've got that that hydrogen cooled to about 2 absolute, that laser hitting it could cause a massive vent, and then you'd be boned.
So I'm going to go ahead, because this sounds so cool, and just buy this conceit. I'm just going to let it go, because this is way better than EVE Online's bang, bang, bang. So the scanner has to watch his panel, because it's constantly scanning the asteroid, but let's assume that it can only scan so deep, and it's trying to keep track. What is the exothermic reaction detector? So if it's trying to keep track of the amount of energy that is expected based on the lasers that you're firing in there, and if it ever goes too high, you have to communicate and say, whoa, take that beam back to the left. Oh, don't go there on the right, and you can presumably mark up on their screen so that they can see don't mine here, ship will explode. Some materials on the asteroid are vulnerable to direct energy blasts. Others are only vulnerable to vibration. So if those things are on the other side and they're constantly getting vibrated by these blasts from your side, they could go out anyway and blast the asteroid at your ship. Like a little machine.
Oh my god. You need to figure out via scans which ones can do this, and then use them as weaponized things. Put a mining drone there, and you just wait. Somebody comes in through the jump point, and here comes a kilometer-wide asteroid.
Exactly.
Actually, based on my experience with the pistol and Arena Commander, I should just land on the asteroid and aim at my own feet when a ship gets too close, and that should blow the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Okay, space worms. Yeah, that's the other thing you gotta watch out for. Space octopus, space worms, space monsters coming out from the middle of the asteroid. We dug too greedily and too deep.
And too deep.
Now that does sound pretty cool. You can. They said you can do all these jobs yourself, but it would be much slower and much more dangerous. The mining laser seems to be going well. Let me run over to the scanning dock. Okay, scanning thing says everything. Oh god, I gotta go turn the mining laser off. Oh, I didn't do it early enough. Let me run to the piloting station. In reality, those would all be in one screen, because that's how computers can work.
Yes. But not in this game.
Not in this game.
But it makes me wonder how an NPC running the scanner, can you buy an NPC who's very good at that danger scanner?
Yes.
The exothermic reaction.
They mentioned that NPCs with higher skill ratings will be more expensive to hire.
Perfect. In that case, I need to start the whole slave trade up and get a bunch of those.
There might be a reason to have the consoles separated entirely. Electronic warfare. If it's possible to access systems from the outside, which they seem to be saying might be the case, then maybe all of the systems in all these ships are partitioned specifically because they figure they'd rather have another person.
Yes.
Yeah, they'd rather have another person than they would like. Then they'd like to have an automated system that could the entire thing get taken over at once.
That's actually a very good use of the, of the fiction within a game. Is if you use the Battlestar Galactica example, we can't network all of our systems together because it's too easy for bad guys to take over the whole ship. So we have to firewall everything separately. That was a great way to explain why you have to do so many things manually in Star Citizen.
Yes,
I hope they use that as the official explanation.
We will need the Vanduul equivalent of Cylons, however.
In order to explain this, we need some kind of robot alien that is computerized.
Some
Borg.
sort of mid-sized ship with dishes all over it that points at people and does things. Perhaps made by a semi-shady company that produces ships purchasable by pirates.
we haven't seen any Vanduul electronic warfare ships the same way we've seen the Herald and that. I'm curious if that exists in concept.
No, that's just it. Scythes. This entire time we've been mistaken. Scythes actually, it
Yes.
isn't blades. It's a giant radar dish, and they're just really, really bad at using.
Oh, okay.
I have an even better concept. You know, sometimes when you're flying, you get rammed by the side and the blade sticks in the ship. That, in fact, is the antenna they've now taken over.
Yeah, obviously. And so now your ship should have that little red thing on wong, wong, wong on the front of it. All right, I think that probably about does it for the show here. We're at a good hour and 20 minutes, which is our standard fare at this point.
Sorry, guys. We'll try harder.
Yeah. So I know we probably missed some things. If you think we did, because you were there, and that means you're totally cooler than us, go ahead and send us feedback at talesofcitizens.com, or even if you just have a question that you'd like us to discuss on the show, unrelated to PAX South, feedback at talesofcitizens.com. We definitely appreciate it. We got quite a bit of feedback from last fortnight show. We didn't have a lot for this one, so let's get some for next one. And remember, Cassandra's Tears you want to read for next week. Hope we can watch the full thing especially for the panel at the end, because I couldn't find a video of that, the big presentation where a lot of this stuff came from. I only saw the town hall meetings, unfortunately. I didn't see the main one.
I saw a posting on the Star Citizen general chat forums. Yes, I know I should not go there. I am sorry. I self-flagellate. Yes, flagellate by going there. I get that. But the point is, they've said they're going to release everything in this giant kind of video compendium showing what they showed in the panels in high def. They're going to edit it together. So if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want to have... what was that film where they go into the woods and a witch kills them all?
Into the Woods?
No, Into the Woods was a musical, and I've not watched it. There was one about the witch. It doesn't matter.
It's a movie about people that go into the woods and a witch kills them all, so to speak.
That's also fair. Yeah. All right. So if you don't want the shaky cam, you can actually wait for the high def version.
That one. The Blair Witch Project. I'm sorry.
There it is. A witch kills them all. I've never actually seen it. But if you don't want the shaky cam effect, you're going to be better off waiting for the high def in a couple of days here.
All right, so thanks, guys, for tuning in. Again, feedback at talesofcitizens.com is how you can get a hold of us. If you want to see the show notes and anything else, talesofcitizens.com is where you can go, as well as to get the audio podcast feed. That's what we pretty much do this for most of the time. But thank you for watching. This is Bridger signing off. Have a good one. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you later, guys.
Damn, I love that music. It's so cool. So cool. All right, now we can have the after show where I explain why I'm mad at Europa Universalis 4. Because I was explaining to Gray earlier, I have this horrible problem right now. I'm playing as Byzantium, and I've been doing very well up until this point, trying to get rid of the Byzantium decline modifier, which is essentially a thing that they put on Byzantium at the start, which is like... You're opulent, decadent, and your people are not the hardened Romans that they used to be. And so you have all these horrible penalties. As you expand, the penalties start going away because the glory of the Byzantium Empire is being returning and things like that. So I've been doing well, and I'm desperately trying to get the last, chord provinces that I need to in order to make it happen. But in order to do that, something happened in the game that I've never seen happen before. So I'm fighting Bulgaria, and I'm fighting Rhodes, the Order of St. John on Rhodes. And Rhodes is a freaking hard island to take. I don't know if you know this, but it's hard. So I'm sitting there waiting, and I've been expanding so much. I have so much war exhaustion. Essentially my country is revolting in multiple places, but I'm okay. I have just enough manpower. I'm just going to wait a little longer. I've got like 10,000 people sieging Rhodes right now. It's just a matter of a very long time, like 2 years before the siege is done, and then I can claim Rhodes and Bulgaria, because this is the war that I got into that Bulgaria was allied with Rhodes, so they called in Rhodes, but Rhodes is allied with all these giant people that there's nothing I could do. If I ever attack Rhodes, like, everybody comes to kill me, right? So I really, really wanted to get Rhodes now. It's a single province territory, or country, and this is the only opportunity I've had where I could attack them or take them without getting in a war with everybody else in the Mediterranean. So I'm sitting there letting my manpower continue to run out to try and get Rhodes. It's just a little longer. I've got these revolts happening. The war exhaustion's really high. Just a little longer. I've already got Bulgaria. A year and a half ago, I could have just pieced out and taken all of Bulgaria and let Rhodes go. But I'm like, no, I gotta have Rhodes. And then, out of nowhere, a stack of like 14,000 troops appears in Rhodes. And I don't know if they were on a ship in the Americas or if they just sprung up out of nowhere, which I've never seen happen. They can't build more than 1,000 guys at a time. And if I'm sieging their place, they can't do that. What just happened? And I am even blockading them. They couldn't have sailed in. It just appeared. And I don't know if it was protesters, I had to give it up. So I took Bulgaria.
Aliens.
But now, my country has so much war exhaustion. I have so much debt because I've just been at war trying to expand as fast as I possibly can. And there's another opportunity. I can take a huge chunk of Italy and nobody can stop me. Oh, there's another opportunity. I can take some of Bulgaria. Oh, there's an opportunity. I can expand Wallachia into Hungary's territory. And I totally helped my vassal take a little extra bite out of Hungary because Hungary's getting too big. And there's another opportunity. I can do this. And after this war, then I'll wait a little while and let my war exhaustion go away and let my manpower catch up. I'll just rely on mercenaries and debt a little bit longer, like every time. And then Rhodes, the golden opportunity of Rhodes, which I was never going to be able to take. I can finally take it, and it's just too tempting, and I do it, and it finally said, no, screw you, and kills my whole thing. So I'm like, fine, I'm just going to stay at peace for like 12 years and rebuild all my manpower, get rid of all my war exhaustion, and make everybody love me again because I'm no longer a warmonger. 1 year into that plan, Hungary says, hey, you remember that little tiny piece that you took from us? Yeah, we'll be taking that back. And by the way, because I had so much massive amount of debt, because I had very low manpower, and because I had so much unrest, there was a peasant uprising, which reduced my stability by 3 and said, yeah, you get this horrible penalty to your unrest modifiers in every province until your stability gets back to 0 and you have, no more manpower than this. And that's when Hungary decides to attack, which makes so much sense because I was just this weakened thing. And even though I have all my allies joining in, it's not enough because in the middle of this war, when I think maybe I can just ride it out and just give them a territory or two, Austria and Austria joins Hungary. That has never freaking happened in any game I've played. They've always been rivals. And in this one, Austria and Hungary form like the unholy alliance, and Austria's tens of thousands of troops come, and I'm like, and I just pull my army back into Turkey and just blockade, because my navy is still powerful. None of the things I'm fighting can defeat my navy, so I can still hide in Turkey. And then my one territory in Italy that I managed to wrest from the Pope like 50 years ago. I actually vassalized the Pope, and he then said, no, that was the old Pope, I'm the new Pope, and we're not going to be your vassals, we're going to renegotiate this deal. And I said, you can't, and France said, actually, they can. And I said, okay, France, okay, whatever you say, France, they can totally not be my vassals anymore. That's a good deal, I'll take it. So now France and Milan attack the one territory I took from in Italy that I really wanted, because I'm trying to remake the Roman Empire, and I can't do that without Rome! So now I'm dealing, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this out. I'm hoping I can just give them Moldavia and that territory back to Hungary, and maybe it will appease them. I have to find out. So yeah, that's what's been happening. That was my Bridger rant this time. Okay, now we do have to go to a meeting for Team Legacy Star Citizen Peoples. So
Paradox does make an awesome game. Give them that though.
Yeah, their
They're
diplomacy system
always
is
completely fucked up.
way better. All right, guys, I am out.
right.
I'm gonna get a drink and pass out right after the meeting. Okay, have a good one, everybody.
All right,
All
go
right.
have fun.